All right, so we're back, guys. So as I was saying just now, is that if we have a number, say for instance, 0.0, so if we have a number 0.0, and then we have 1, 0, 0, 3. How many significant numbers we have here now, students?
4, sir.
4.
All right. Anybody disagree with what Mr. Tom is saying?
That there's two significant figures, sir.
Who was just speaking just now? Mr. Shamar?
Yes, sir.
What were you saying about this?
I was asked, no, because I just came in and then you asked the question if everybody agreed with what Mr. Wilson was saying.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about. So based on the number that we have here, I had asked the question, how many significant figures we have there? Could you tell me how many significant figures are there, Mr. Campbell?
2, sir. That's all the rest of zeros.
All right. Now, Ms. Wilson had said 4. So my question was, is there anybody who is not agreeing with Ms. Wilson? So clearly you got 2, right? Ms. Wilson got 4, so you are in disagreement. So my question to you, Mr. Campbell, why you say 2?
Because I see only 2 digits that are not 0 exactly.
All right.
I don't really fully understand it.
Okay. Somebody had held up their hand just now with a burning desire to say something. Was that you, Ms. Clark?
I'm not really a burning desire, sir, but I was just thinking it was 2 also. Not sure if I'm right.
Okay, so you are in agreement with Mr. Campbell. All right. Anybody else in agreement with Ms. Waysome?
I mean, I think it's 4 too, sir.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes, Mr. Campbell.
I don't mean to I don't mean to just barge you like that. But when I look at it, I think it's 4 because the zeros are in between the 1 and the 3. So I think it might be 4.
Oh, so you're changing your position now, Mr. Campbell?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So in fact, there are 4 significant figures for the same reason what Mr. Campbell observed just now. The fact of the matter is, Miss Cummins, you want to make a comment? So the fact.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to point out that you said that the first non-zero digit, you did not say all the zeros in the number.
Exactly.
You said the first.
So once you
Yeah.
find the first non-zero digit, all the digits that follow that, we're going to regard them as significant. So we start counting from the first non-zero digit. So this one is not a non-zero digit. This is not a non-zero. These are zeros, so these are not non-zeros. Now the 1 here is a non-zero, and it is the first non-zero digit. Once you find the first one, then all your significant figures going to be counted from that point onwards. And even if zeros come in the mix, those zeros going to be significant just the same. Is that clear to everybody? Raise your hand if you're following what I'm saying. Okay, great. So everybody should be on the same page. All right, so with all of that said, let me see if I can shine some more light on what we're doing. So we say that decimal places, it is the number of figures which follow the decimal point that give the number of decimal places. That means you simply count if we are told to round off to a certain number of decimal places, we only count those digits coming after the point. So if you want one decimal place, we count one digit after the point. Two decimal places, we count two digits after the point. Three decimal places, we count three digits after the point, and so on. Now, if we now talking about rounding off this number, so you're asked to round off in three different stages, right? So one, you are to round, so it's actually three different questions. So the first question, you are to round off one decimal place. Second one, two decimal places. Third one, three decimal places. So we want to do each of these one at a time. We can just quickly go through it orally. We don't have to spend a lot of time writing down. So if we're rounding off this to one decimal place, can somebody volunteer and give me the answer?
One decimal place, sir.
Yeah, all right, go ahead, Miss.
85.8.
All right, somebody said, all right, anybody else agree with that 85.8? Let me see your hands. Okay, all right, so correct. So the first decimal, if you're rounding off to one decimal place, it should be 85.8. All right, now let me just ask individuals, preferably call on persons who are not participating. Ms. Cabrera, if we're rounding off this to two decimal places, what would be the answer?
Sir, 85.77.
Anybody else agree with what Ms. Cabrera is saying? 85.77. Let me see the hands.
Wait, and 84. Just the 85.7.
Go ahead, Ms. Cabrera. You're making some correction there.
No, sir, just the 85.7.
So it is what is the correct answer? Ms. Cabrera, what's the answer?
Sir, 85.77.
Okay, you sound a little doubtful. Go ahead, Ms.
Yes.
So to correct it to two decimal places, it will be 85.77. Now, I hope everybody is understanding why these answers are correct, because we are following the same rounding off principle with the steps that we learned earlier. Three decimal places, Ms. Raysom, give me three decimal places.
85.768, sir.
85.768.
768.
Correct. All right, so everybody should be comfortable rounding off in decimal places now. Look at this situation here. Now we want to correct to first three decimal places, then two decimal places. Let me call on somebody here. Mr. Giovanni Reed. Three decimal places, what would we have here?
Um, 0.007.
0.007. Any agreement with what Mr. Reed just said? Raise your hand. All right. All right, Mr. Reed, you sound a little doubtful. What is it that you're not sure about?
The zero them, sir.
All right, so for decimal places, it doesn't matter if you even have zero coming after the point. It is different from significant figures in that we don't really going to look for the first non-zero digit. We're just counting the digits after the point, whether zero or not. Is that clear now?
Okay.
Okay, good. Now, Miss, let me call on somebody else to tell me two decimal places now. All right, Mr. Paisley, I haven't heard anything at all from you, sir. Could you give us the answer rounding off this number to two decimal places? What would be the answer?
.01, sir.
Anybody else in agreement with Mr. Paisley? All right, so very good. So we are quite clear on how to round off these numbers. All right, let me see if anybody know we're rounding off this number to two decimal, then one decimal place. Miss Clark?
I have a question, sir.
What?
For the first one that we just did,
Right.
the rounding off to the three decimal places. I like the three is like below 5, sir, and closer to 0.
You're talking about this
If
here, right? This is what you're talking about?
Yes.
All right,
Yes,
so
sir.
we're rounding off 3 places, so we count 3 digits after the point. 1, 2, 3. So we're rounding off to the 7th. So what's the question now?
Yes, sir. You have to drop out the 3?
Yes. Once the numbers come after that position we're rounding off to in terms of decimal places, all the other numbers will be dropped off. If we add 1 to this, after we add 1, we're going to drop off the rest. You follow?
Yes, sir.
Right. So that's how it is done, because to maintain the number of decimal places, remember we say it's the amount of numbers that come after the point. So if let's say that we didn't drop off the 3, but instead put a 0 there, what would happen? Would we still have 3 decimal places? Ms. Clark, suppose instead we write 0.07 and replacing the 3 with 0. Would that still be 3 decimal places?
Oh, no, sir.
No. So it is really the amount of digits that come after the point that determine the number of decimal places. All right, so for the next question, while you're on the floor, Ms. Clark, would you like to round off to the next number to 2 decimal places for us?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It would be 7.60.
Nobody agree with what Ms. Clark has said? Let me see the hands of those who are in agreement with Ms. Clark. All right. Okay, so everybody is in agreement. Correct, Miss Clark. Everybody is on point. What about one decimal place? While you're at it, Miss Clark, just throwing that one. Miss Clark?
Yes, sir. 7.6.
7.6. All right, so that would be 2 decimal places. That would be 1. So I hope everybody is really getting the idea of what rounding off really is. All right. All right, now looking at significant figures. So instead of using the number of decimal places to express the accuracy of an answer, significant figures can be used. Now, remember now, students, don't confuse significant figures with decimal places, because even though we make this clear distinction right here, right now, couple of weeks after this now, you don't remember which is which. That's how the brain works. You start to confusing the two. So in order not to confuse yourself, every now and then you have to go back and review the concept so that you don't make mistakes when it comes on to exam. Now, can you remind us now? Let me pick on somebody. Mr. Ojeno, can you remind us now? How do we determine the number of, how do we determine significant figures?
First non-zero numbers.
Could you add something to that?
First non-zero numbers that are meaningful.
Can somebody else something to what Mr. Ojeno is saying?
First non-zero number, sir, starting from the left.
It's not, it's what you're just giving me a vague understanding of what significant figure is. Significant is not the first non-zero.
From the left. Or it's the same thing.
Miss Green, you want to say something? Go ahead, Miss Green.
Sir, basically same thing, sir. May I say if you start counting from the first non-zero number on the left, sir. All
right, so that's a process of, or that's a procedure of finding them. But significant figure has to do with all the figures starting from the first non-zero digit to the right. So that's how we find the significant figures in our answer. So once you start counting all the digits from the first non-zero to the right, those are all significant figures, unless now we decide which significant figure we want to round off to. So in other words, even though all of them are significant, we can now decide which one is more meaningful to us. So we can decide to round off it to either 2 significant figures, 3 significant figures, 4 significant figures, etc. All right. So looking at this number now, 39.39 corrected to 4 significant figures. Now, what we know, how many digits we have here in total?
Four.
We have 4. Now, because we're counting from the first non-zero digit to the right, all of these numbers will be significant. All right, so once you get all the numbers in the entire digit, they are all significant from the first non-zero digit. All right, so the first significant figure in a number is the first non-zero term starting from the leftmost term. All right, so for this term, the first significant figure is a 7, second one is 9, third one is 3, and so on. Now, when rounding off significant figures, we we just in a similar way, just like how we were looking at the whole number, we choose which place value is more meaningful to us. All right. Now, one of the reasons why when in like from a marketing point of view, when they're trying to get you to buy certain products, the advertiser will say $4.99 instead of $5. Because you're seeing $4.99 kind of give you a sense that you're still spending $4. But in reality, it's just 1 cent short from $5. So you're, if in terms of thinking about what really is the meaningful amount here would be, it's really $5 would be meaningful, but depending on how. So if you have $4.99, $4.99, and we want to round that off to the first significant figure, what would we get, Miss Waysome?
Sir, go ahead again. We'll round it up. You said round off.
Yes.
The first significant.
The first significant figure.
5, sir.
Explain how you get the 5.
Sir, because the 4, which is a whole number, right? And then you said round off to the first significant.
All right. Now,
you're hearing me?
Yeah, let me clarify. This is not $4.99. This is $499.
Oh, it's $499.
Right. So,
well, listen to the
so what is the, if we're rounding off to the first significant figure, it would be equal to what?
500, sir.
Okay.
5.
Who is in agreement with Miss Waysome? Let me see your hands.
So you say first significant figure.
Yeah.
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah, agree.
I say first significant, yes, because it's first significant one of the whole phone.
All right.
So I think it's 500.
Who is that again? Who is saying that?
Who means?
Miss Cummings. You say, what you think it is, Miss Cummings?
500, sir.
All right. Anybody else want to give their input?
500.
500.
So we have 2 persons saying 5. Any more answers?
I think it's 500.
Let me ask the people who say 500 now. Why did you say 500?
Looking at the exam.
What was that, Miss Green?
Sir, 499, sir, that is the whole number. The whole number. So, sir,
Right.
if you're going to round off the 4, sir, and you get 5, then it'll add the 0 them as the place value.
All right. Miss Sam, you want to comment?
yes, sir. I'm thinking that I made a mistake. It would have been 500 because it said figure, right, sir? Not digit. They said figure. So the figure would have been like the total amount, which would have been 500.
I could say round it after the first significant digit too. It would make
But sir, if I the first significant digit, sir, I would have 5.
No, when I say significant digits,
You're singling out a digit.
yeah, but it's not in the context of what the number is. It is 499. So the one that is significant is the one that is more meaningful to present. That means, it doesn't mean that, look at this now. This is 499.
Is it round off, sir, to the nearest figure, significant
Yeah.
figure?
Yeah, but the fact that we are rounding off and this is a whole number,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you're rounding off whole numbers, you have to replace those values that are not rounded, that you round off with zero.
Mm-hmm. To zero, yes, sir.
Yeah, whether or not you're doing significant figures. So once a whole number. So it means then, if you think about this, you are rounding off to the 4 because that is the first significant figure, right? Or if you say the first significant digit, I kind of see where you're trying to single out that digit and kind of ignore the others. But let's not use the term digit in terms of confusing ourselves. It really means that if this is your first significant figures, the other two that are not significant, if they are whole numbers, you have to replace them with 0. For the fact that if you look at this in terms of the first significant figure, in this context of this number, 499, figure here would be 400, right? But the 4 would be, the digits represent the 400. We're thinking in terms of base value now, right?
Yes, sir.
400. This 9 would be 90. So based on the place values, they are in different positions, but they are all significant just the same. But when we are focusing on the 4, it means that these two values have to get zeros as placeholders for them. It's just the same as how we are rounding off whole numbers. All right, Ms. Waysam?
Yes, sir.
So when we're rounding off whole numbers, it can be rounding off whole numbers based on significant figures, or it can be rounding off just whole numbers without thinking about what value is significant. So the two general ways that we can round off is in significant figures or decimal places. It is in decimal places we know that we are focusing only on those values that come after the point. If it is in significant figures, we need to start now from the first non-zero digit from the leftmost position. And if it is the whole number section, we can't just ignore the fact that there was 9 here and there was 9. So we round off in the same. So we have the 4 position, we examine the number that comes after, greater than 5. So we add 1 to the 4, it becomes 5. Other 2 digits, we replace them with 0. So if you're rounding off to the first significant figure in this, you will get 500. Is that clear to you now, Ms. Waysam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what it really is. I know you seem a little doubtful, but that's what it is. And if you look at what we have here for the first in 198, the first significant figure is 200 because we are rounding off to the first significant figure here. You follow me, Waysam?
Yes, sir.
Right, so we say that if we're rounding off to the first significant figure, this is the first non-zero digit, we're rounding off to that one, we examine the one that follows, greater than 5, we add 1 to that one, we get 2, and then because these are whole numbers, we just replace them with zeros. So that's what it is, Miss Waysome. So don't feel doubtful about it. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. All right. So here, for this other number, 152, you're rounding off to the first significant figure. Now, if you're rounding off this number to the first significant figure, you get 2,000, right? Now, what you realize here is that for the first significant figures, we are just focusing on this first digit. So we look at the numbers that come after, or the number that come after 5 or more. We add 1 to the 1, we get 2. Now what you notice here now, put a placeholder 0 for where the 5 was, 0 where the 4 was, and 0 where the 2 was. However, anything that comes after the points, we drop them off, because if they come after the point and we even put 0 there, it really doesn't make a difference to have those zeros there. So in this sense, we just drop off these and just leave it 200. Is that clear to everybody? Any question about that, Ms. Waysome?
No, sir.
Miss Comment, is that clear? Everybody see why we don't bother to put any 0 in this position?
Yes, sir.
Because 0.000 is really not adding any value to the whole number here. So in other words, you don't have a fractional part. You have a whole number part. The whole number part going to be 2,000. You can't drop off these zeros that come before the point, because if you drop off these zeros, you're going to change the actual value based on the place values here. So these zeros, these position, these digits that in the whole number that comes after 1, we have to put 0 to hold those. Because if we should drop off those values, then you would only have 2, and 2 wouldn't represent this entire number, which is 1542. So in order to represent what the actual value of the number is, we have to put zeros to hold these positions, because these are whole numbers position that are meaningful. Go ahead, Mr. Authors. Let me see what Mr. Authors had said. All right. All right, so never got how you drop. So you're referring to the zeros after the point, Mr. Authors? Right. So remember now, we are only concerned about the first significant figure. And if we are rounding off to that first significant figure, if we're rounding off to whole numbers, once we have rounded up to the first figure, for the other numbers within the whole number part, and the whole number part would be to the left of the point, all of these numbers here, we have to put zeros there. But after the point, there's no sense of putting zeros here, because the value in decimal that come after the point would be the fractional part. So if you have 0, 0, 0 here, the first 0 would be equal to what? 0 out of 10. And because you have 3 digits after the point, it will be what? 0 out of 1,000. Now remember now, if you have 0 over 1,000 and 0 divided by 1,000, then all of this will be just 0. which really is insignificant to have them there. You following what I'm saying, Mr. Arthurs? Is that clear enough for you, Mr. Arthurs? I'm not getting a response. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that's the reason why we don't bother to put any zeros after the point, because those zeros after the point really don't make any sense because they don't add anything to the value at all. There's zero fractional part, so we don't need to have those zeros there. But the whole number part, we have to keep those zeros because we need to represent what that value is, right? Because when we say the first significant figure, this entire digit here is 1542, and you want to get to the closest significant figure going to be 2000. All right. All right, so zeros must be kept to show position of decimal point placeholders or to indicate that 0 is a significant figure. All right, so in these first cases, these zeros are meaningful, so we have to have them there. All right, here we go now. Can we jump in now and try to round off these now? Ms. Waysome, you're saying something? Do you want to do the first question here?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, so I want you to do part
Oh, sorry, sir. Realize.
part A of this.
4 significant figures, sir.
All right, stick up in, Miss Waysome. I'm going to call on somebody else. Miss Williams, are you there?
Yes, sir.
You want to help us out? 4 significant figures. All right, Miss Williams, you seem to be a little unsure. Let me call on somebody else. Miss Clark, 4 significant figures.
All right, sir. To 4 significant figures, it will be 24390.
Anybody else agree with Miss Clark? Let me see the hands. Okay. All right. All right. Very good. Now, Miss Williams, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
You want to try 3 significant figures now?
Sir, it would be 244.
That would be it. Think about it. Would it be just 244?
244.